Greetings, class. This is our final video for the term. Final thoughts, reflections. There's a couple of different things that are going to be unique about this video. One is that it's going to be different than the others in that it'll be a bit longer. I'm going to do more content in one video instead of uploading different segments. The other is that I'm kind of going to do more of a summary of material that we've covered than to try and get to new terrain. This happens for obvious reasons. We're getting to the end. It's time to wrap things up. It's part of a process thing. When we talk about process and all of this stuff in conflict, we have to think about how there's different segments, right? The beginning of the class is where you lay ground rules. The middle is where you go over the body of the work, the evidence. Last portion of a process, you tidy things up, you reach agreements, you do stuff. And if you start getting into new evidence and new arguments in the third phase, that might be part of the reality checking. Will this actually work? It's not a good idea to try and have new arguments. So I'm not trying to end class with something new, something challenging, especially since you don't get a chance to come back at me. I am on campus. It's part of the situation that's kind of funny about life, is that we have expectations, we have hopes, we have dreams. We start a class with ideas of what's going to happen. Couldn't get into the building. I've actually never tried to go to campus on a weekend so I can make a recording. So I'm sitting outside, there's a breeze, all of this different stuff features into you're getting a different video. But that's all right. We work with it. And managing expectations has been a theme in the class. I've had a lot of different themes. One of the reasons people find themselves in conflict is that their expectations weren't met. This could be an instructor grading students too harshly. This can be students feeling disappointed that they didn't learn as much from a class they signed up for. This could be coworkers, this can be friendships, this can be anything. But managing expectations really gets to the heart of interests, values, wants, needs, positions. Sometimes expectations are absolutely reasonable, and sometimes they're aspirational. And we can be disappointed when our wants and needs aren't met. But when we manage our expectations, we sometimes discover that the things that we were hoping for weren't reasonable. In this case, it might not be reasonable to have assumed that I'd get into the building, or that I would assume that I'd be able to reach campus safety, and show them my ID card and get to the building. Anyway, in this class, we had several goals enumerated in our syllabus, right? This is our contract. I established the course day one, telling you that this is our contract. This is what you can expect from the class. And I gave you your final assignment, and hopefully you're hard at work on a final paper that really reflects the breadth to which this class has been significant in helping you to think about past, current, and future experiences. The instructional goals for this class. First one was to identify and utilize theories in the field of conflict resolution and stage and life cycle of conflict. So, conflict. We've had a lot of discussion about theory. We've covered this from different academic disciplines. What is biology? What is sociology? What is psychology? What do these different disciplines tell us about conflict? We had a textbook that gave us the opportunity to examine humans compared with other mammals. Are we just violent apes? I've read your responses to this, right? Considering the reactions. These theories help us to figure out what's human nature. Who are we? Started the class, the baseline. Who are you? Know thyself. It's really important that we ground ourselves. We practice things like self-care. We've been talking a lot about that. The better day you're having, the better at work you're producing, the better outcomes you're producing, the better a job of listening you're able to do. We work on ourselves, we improve our communities. It's a beautiful thing. It's a remarkable thing. We're not at our best all the time. We can't expect others to be at their best all the time. But we know these truths, and these theories help us to think our way through the chaotic, nuanced, problematic world we live in. Things are getting better and things are getting worse all the time. And the theories help us to explain what are the features that are making things escalate in tensions or de-escalate in tensions. What are the things that are happening that are changing to create positive relationships and increase our chances for success in the disputes we have? Theory. Theory is what helps us to describe the systems and features of the world we live in. We've covered a wide range of theory. When the theory works, use it. When the theory doesn't work, find one that does. These are the ways that I've counseled you as your introduction. Understand and employ terminology and analytic framework specific to this field. Peace studies is a different way of approaching the past, present, and future. It tells us that actually there are different and better ways to do things than the dominant paradigm, which leads to things like genocide. And the genocide may or may not produce the outcomes of those initiating it. I say that, that's the world we're in today. There is currently genocide taking place in this world. Our efforts, well-intentioned as they may be, have failed. Despite promises of never again, we continue to fail to make good on that promise, on those promises. Peace study says there are better ways. Evidence says these other ways work better. Don't take my word for it. Don't trust my assertions. That's not critical thinking. Critical thinking is the process by which we examine the premises in our arguments, the evidence that supports them, and the conclusions that we form from these arguments. The text hopefully has convinced you there are better ways to do things. The terminology, I've told you, positive peace, negative peace. These are the concepts that we're framing our discussion, the past, present, and future. The absence of violence is not a bad thing. We want to be free from direct physical threats. But the conditions that support and permit those physical threats, or that cause harms indirectly, also need to be worthy of our examination, thought, serious discourse. We have lots of systems that are causing harm in this world. That isn't the direct individual to individual violence that we see, glamorized in Hollywood movies and so forth. But these choices lead to things. Again, we don't just have genocide in the world, we also have starvation. There's not a shortage of food, it's just that food doesn't get to the right places. That's tragic. We can avoid it, we can prevent it, we can react to it, we can do better. These ideas of terminology make it possible to have conversations in a more insightful and meaningful way. Hopefully you walk away with a good understanding that structural violence is every bit as damaging as direct violence, sometimes even worse. I've asked you to examine case studies by identifying stages of conflict and to apply critical tools to these case studies. In fact, on day one, that's what I said your final paper would be. A reflection of real experiences or observations you've made and imagining that things could have worked out differently, either worse or better. Oftentimes, I want us to think about what are the things that can produce the outcomes we desire. But what I've asked you to do is see how these tools could have potentially changed the realities that you've observed or experienced. What could make your community, what could make your life better? I've asked you to identify and comprehend key underlying assumptions, values, methods of change within these fields. I've presented that there's things that we know that tend to work. We know that people repeat themselves until they've been heard, as an example. You hear the person, how can you prove to them that you've heard them? You repeat back to them what you understand. Once they feel understood, you can move to the next step. Understanding is not synonymous with agreement, but frequently people feel and experience this part that they will repeat themselves until they feel heard, and oftentimes they think that there's no way you could disagree with them if you understand them. It's a process. Understanding, listening for understanding comes first. If we force other people to understand where we're coming from first, we may never get them to listen. Process, order of operations, which things work, which things are likely to work, which settings are they likely to work in. What do we know, right? We know all of these different elements of psychology and sociology have informed the way that we listen and we speak and we understand and we operate. What does eye contact mean? What do sunglasses mean? What do hand gestures mean? What does body language mean? Our understandings of that help us to understand the social interactions we're engaged with. But sometimes what we assume from the things we see is wrong, mistaken, and that leads to unmanaged or unmet expectations. The more we know, the more we can avoid. We can never have perfect knowledge. We have to make choices. We have to make decisions. We have to act in an uncertain and ambiguous world. We don't always know what the right thing to do is. Sometimes we have a chance to think about it more deeply, but we never have the perfect information, or we rarely have the perfect information, is better said. We have to make choices without all of the information. And this leads to mistakes. Sometimes we guess right, and sometimes we guess wrong. And the same happens for others. They can assume what our interests, wants, and needs are. We can assume what their interests, wants, and needs are. And sometimes those assumptions are wrong. That leads us into expectations and problems in those decisions. I've asked you to apply frameworks and key principles of the course to contemporary social contexts, whether on global, social, community, professional, interpersonal, or intrapersonal conflicts. Again, the core of this class is not anything about what do I want for you, but all about what do you want for yourselves, and what do you want for the world you're in. What do you want to do about the things that you hear about or see on the news? Do you want to leave it to others? Do you want to take on some of those challenges? Do you want to worry about yourself first? Again, we've spent time doing things like talking about self-care. We've talked about inner peace. We've talked about the way that we're doing, or the things that we're doing being impacted by the things that we're experiencing. If you're experiencing pain and suffering, start with yourself. If you're stuck, if you're locked into pain and suffering, seek help from others. Advocate for yourself. Pick fights with the people who are preventing you from meeting your needs. Don't use these. Throwing hands isn't likely to produce the outcomes you desire. Use the tools. What are the ways to best advance your cause? What are the best ways to demand that your needs are being met? What are the best ways of seeing that you live in a community and a world that you want to live in? You've explored some of the greats. Gandhi says, be the change you want to be in the world. What are the things you need to do to improve your life? Empower yourself. Feel empowered by professors and instructors who are giving you the tools that you need for your success. I've told you time and time again, and your colleagues have affirmed, no matter what choices you make professionally and personally, conflict is unavoidable. Having the tools will make for a better life and a better workplace. I've also told you that we need to dismiss this thinking of conflict as an inherently bad thing. Sometimes conflict is good. Sometimes conflict is a thing that produces the outcomes that change us for the better, change others for the better, improve relationships, create the change that we want to see in the world. Conflict can start with something as simple as identifying a problem. And sometimes people just are unaware that the things that they're doing are bothering you, are causing harm, are wrong. Education can be an answer. That doesn't mean that ignorance underlies all problems. Some people are very well aware of what they're doing, and that doesn't bother them. Again, the systems allow us to think about these problems and identify ways to troubleshoot the obstacles to achieving desired outcomes. Empower yourself. You're brilliant people operating in a world of chaos. Mistakes happen, but results are achievable. So these are the final thoughts. The final thoughts are to say that you're not going to live in a life free of conflict, but if you practice these things, you'll get better at them, right? Maybe practice will never make perfect, but practice will make better. Your comfort level of dealing with adversity will increase. Your skill in being able to declare the rationale for defending and justifying your position will improve. Your ability to sympathize and empathize with others so that you can anticipate what they're looking for and identify collaborative or accommodating solutions for those problems, especially when they have needs and you want to meet them. Collaboration is something that we aspire to in relationships with value. Your family and your friends and your partners and your coworkers that you want to love and appreciate for the rest of your lives if you're lucky. Life is short. We don't need to waste life. It's precious. We don't need to spend too much energy and focus on the areas where the return on investment is likely to be low. Commit your energies to yourself because you're important and to the people that you value. Commit yourself to finding out better ways to solve the problems that you face or to avoid facing them at all. These are the final thoughts. It's an introductory class. It's introduced you to things that you already knew. You've experienced the world, your relationships, your conflicts, your realities. You're the expert on that. But you've been introduced to some ways of thinking about that which are new. Figure out how to employ those tools so that you can get what you want out of life, so that you can help deliver the life that others want. Help to pass on the tools. Help to pass on the knowledge. Help to pass on the wisdom that is fighting for things is good sometimes, but other times there's better ways. And when we are fighting for things, using this instead of this tends to deliver better outcomes. We're more likely to get what we want in this world when we think our problems through and we act on them strategically. We use decision-making processes that are proven to show the results that we desire. Not necessarily going through the practices and the processes that make us feel better in the moment. Alignment, proper alignment. You've taken a class on peace and conflict. Use the tools that work. Practice the tools that deliver you the success. Think about it. Make this a part of your daily habit. Right? Critical thinking means giving credit to both. What am I doing well that I want to encourage and keep up? And where are my areas of improvement? Some days our skills are lacking in some areas. Maybe we didn't sleep well, and so we didn't listen well today. Are there choices that we could make that would make it easier for us to sleep? It's a lot of privilege that we're operating in. Not everybody gets the choice of being able to avoid or ignore conditions that have become obstacles. But to the degree that we can empower ourselves, we ought to. And each and every one of you can live up to the promise of being in the driver's seat of your life, of being able to make positive choices about the professional and personal steps that you take. Will you always be right? Of course not. If you're anything like me, you'll make a lot of mistakes, and you'll tell people, I don't want you to make the same mistakes I did. But you'll also tell people, you know what, there's stuff that I've learned, and it's really, really been rewarding. It's made my life just a more rich experience. My relationships have improved because I've figured out how to listen to people and what they have to say without being focused on how I'm going to sound smart and how I'm going to respond. Listening for understanding. Tools, skills. Thing about all of this, I can present these to you. I can present you activities that help you to get better at these skills. But all of the success is yours. I can't take any of your credit. Your hard work is what pays off and you achieving the outcomes you want. And you deserve every bit of what you get. Every bit of it's yours. I'm just happy to see your accomplishments. So it's been a great class. It's been a different kind of class. This hybrid model, we've been connected and disconnected. And we've learned this way. And the benefits and the blessings of all of that are things that we can think about. So I leave you knowing that if you ever want to get a hold of me, you know how to find me. I'm Wim Lavin, and I'm easy to find on Facebook. You have an email address. You know where my YouTube channel is. So hopefully we can stay in touch. Hopefully you can tell me about all your accomplishments. But one way or another, that's all I wish for you. The best. So go forward into the world. Chase after your dreams. Work hard. Play hard. Enjoy. Be yourselves. Be beautiful. Thank you.